Welcome to Inside Texas Football. I'm wearing a Vibrant shirt tonight. They tell you to wear a Vibrant shirt when you've got, an eye bruise or something like that, or a purple eye to distract people from the bruise. I'm just wearing it because I'm a groovy guy, and I got to shout out Texas Honey Ham. They're not a sponsor of the show, but they should be. If you're from Austin, Texas, you've been to Texas Honey Ham. If you haven't, absolute staple of the Westlake neighborhood. I was wearing this shirt at a press conference, and Jake Majors, shocker, an offensive lineman, told me he loves the chocolate chip pancakes from Texas Honey Ham. Some of the best. They're a local business, so if you are in Austin, check out Texas Honey Ham. But we've got a loaded show tonight, guys. I know it's the off season. It's Tuesday, February 18th, 2025 years after death. February 18th, also known as the week after my little brother's birthday. I forgot to shout it out last week. I said something on Thursday. None of y'all commented happy birthday, Thomas. So please drop a happy birthday, Thomas, in the chat. I was a bad brother by forgetting to say it was his birthday on February 11th. But yeah, we've got a packed show. We're going to talk about college football playoff expanding yet again. And then the biggest missed calls on 3. Our friends there released the top 10 biggest missed calls of the year. And unsurprisingly, Texas, a couple incidences come to mind, and probably yours as well. They were on the list. So we're going to talk about those missed calls. And also, happy birthday, Michael Taff. He's got a birthday a week after my little brother. How lucky of him. My little brother also goes to UT, guys. So y'all should love Tom. Drop a happy birthday, Thomas. And yeah, so then lastly, we're going to talk about SEC power rankings. I'm going to talk about program power rankings and the future of the SEC, where the programs rank in sort of the next 3 to 5 years in my mind. But first, yeah, let's get into college football playoff is expanding. Big news, of course. I'm sure a lot of you guys heard about it. We talked about it yesterday on the Monday night show. So that's why you got to make sure you subscribe if you haven't already to Inside Texas Football. We gave initial reactions and thoughts on the huge news of the CFP expanding even more. I don't think anybody was really that surprised, though. We knew that the contract came up in 2026, and the SEC and Big Ten were not happy with where they standed with missing, Alabama in their mind, and Ole Miss and South Carolina should have been, playoff teams. I disagree with that, but they hold all the cards. They've got all the money. They kind of drive the whole entire sport at this point. They've got more power than the NCAA itself. So why not? Hey, if you've got one yacht, why not buy 3, right? They want to get as rich as possible. I don't understand the mind of billionaires, but maybe that's why I'm broadcasting from my little brother's room and my parents' house. So, hey, but yeah, the SEC basically, they were like, hey, if you're going to give us 3 of our teams, we want 5 of our teams, whatever. So basically now the SEC and Big Ten, for those who live under a rock and haven't seen, they want 4 auto bids. So 4 each. That's 8 auto bids to the SEC and Big Ten. I mean, they're calling all the shots. We're not really surprised by this. They're the biggest market grab conferences by far. They get the most eyes, and then, hey, I mean, you can't fault them for that. It is what it is. You would much rather watch USC play Penn State than watch Houston play Iowa State. This is just the reality of life. But also the fact is that those small markets make up a huge chunk of college football fans, right? It's not all just big brands, because a majority of the sport is small fan bases like a Washington State or an Oregon State in these small little towns that really make the heartbeat of college football and make college football what it is. But yeah, so to break it down, though, there are going to be 8 automatic qualifiers. They're thinking of expanding to 14 teams, possibly 16. I don't know what they're going to decide on that matter, but it'll be 2 automatic qualifying bids to the Big 12 and 2 automatic bids to the ACC. And it's going to happen in 2026. So this isn't happening right now, but they're planning on meeting next week. This was talked about on InsideTexas.com that we were expecting this to happen. Ross Dellinger did officially break it, though, over from Yahoo Sports. He's not a friend of the program yet. Maybe one day. But yeah, so the Big 12 and ACC, I mean, now it's just kind of like blatantly they're saying, hey, we are the bigger, better conference. They're not even, dancing around it anymore. It is just very blatant. Like, we deserve more bids than you guys. and we can do what we want. Basically, what happened here was last summer they threatened the other conferences and the college football playoff committee that if they weren't given the most revenue from the college football playoff, because they're saying, hey, we drive more eyeballs, we're the reason you're even watching the playoff is because SEC and Big Ten, right? That they would start their own playoff. So it's kind of like, the rich kid, they can have all the gifts in the world, but they see you got one gift they didn't have and they want that one too. They're not happy with just 3 teams. They want 5. They're not happy with, 2 ACC teams making it. They want less, or they want more SEC teams to match it, right? And so, yeah, I mean, all the league presidents in Notre Dame have signed off on an agreement that's given the power to the SEC and Big Ten, but it's really because the SEC and Big Ten kind of held them hostage and saying, like, we're going to just start our own thing, which would ostensibly, there's your vocab word of the day, which would basically destroy college football as you know it if you went and started basically a major league and a minor league with the Big Ten and the SEC at the top, and then everybody would be, trying to get a spot at the table where they could be in the SEC or Big Ten and not be left out to what would then be relegated to a group of 7 or something, with the ACC and Big 12 not making the cut. So all these commissioners from the Big 12, ACC, American, all the G5 commissioners, they all signed off on it. Notre Dame signed off on it. So now the Big Ten and SEC, they're driving the boat. I mean, they're co-captains. They're piloting the future of college football. The NCAA president doesn't even matter at this point. The league, well, the sport is basically run by the SEC and Big Ten, Greg Sankey, and the likes. But it appears that the mini NFL is kind of happening. This is sort of what people's fear was when we saw 12-team playoff, because it started out as a theory of inclusion, right? On paper, with your naivete affecting you, your childlike wonder, thinking that maybe there will be another Boise State type run. You're rooting for the underdogs, and you think, oh, this will be great. Now teams like SMU will get in. Teams like Boise State will get in. You remember the old days of, TCU making a run and all these underdogs in the 2000s from non-Power 5 schools that had such great, New Year's 6 runs, the UCFs of the world, right? And we thought mistakenly, maybe if you were more naive or innocent, and you were thinking with your heart, you thought, oh, this will give these teams more of a chance. In actuality, all it did was start it was the gateway drug to NFL light. That's basically what happened. The 12-team playoffs not even going to be 2 years old before we're going to get a new rendition with 14 teams, because the SEC and Big Ten just say, hey, if I can have a little bit of the cake, I want the whole, I don't want just a slice. I want the entire cake for myself. And that's kind of what's happening here. It's not good for the sport. And, their pocketbooks might get thicker in the short term, but in the long term, this is not good for the sport, in my opinion. Being the mini NFL is going to destroy it long term. It might be good for ratings initially because, I'll like to watch Michigan play. Well, Michigan playing Oregon is a conference game now. I'd like to see Michigan play Alabama in a non-conference game and an out-of-conference game early in the season. No one likes to see Alabama play Mercer. No offense to SEC Network Plus, but nobody wants to watch Alabama beat the crap out of, an FCS school in the second week of November or whenever the SEC schedules those cakewalk games. But I think that is good, right? Because another part of this deal is that they're going to be incentivized to schedule tougher out-of-conference games because they won't be penalized. So you're going to see an 8-4 team have they're going to have the ability to compete for a title now. If that's what you want, all the power to you. I personally hate it because I think we already saw this year that not winning the Big Ten and not beating Michigan, and Ohio State can still win a title. It's only going to get like that, but on crack. It's going to get worse. It's going to be, you're 9-3. You beat none of your rivals. You have 3 conference losses. Oh, you're in a national title because you're giving Georgia, Texas, Michigan, Alabama, whoever, Ohio State, a 4th, 5th chance to try and win the title, which I don't think that's what the sport is supposed to be about. Because the NFL, that's one thing because you have parity where if you have 4 or 5 losses, you're a good team. In college football, the idea is that the games matter more because there are less games. Same with college basketball in comparison to the NBA. And we know how bad the NBA is doing in regular season. The NFL added an extra game because they wanted more money. I mean, it's just at what point do we just, totally gut this entire thing for the goal of more riches, more money. I need another supercar. Are these guys not rich enough? That's my opinion. Are these guys not rich enough? Like, do we really need more games? Does Texas need to be playing 17 games? Is that what college football is about? I personally like when the games matter more. That's what college football is, because a big part of what makes college football is the band, the tradition, the fight song, the nostalgia, the fact that you rooted for that team when you were 8 years old. The fact that you guys know who Kenny Vaccaro is here. You know who Vince Young is there, Tim Tebow there, even though you're not a Texas fan, right? That's what makes college football, is there's just a certain feeling, I think college football is easier to consume than the NFL for me, because if you're a casual person, I'd much rather watch Ohio State play USC in a Rose Bowl. That used to be a thing. Now it's a conference game because that's good. Realignment is good. It's a conference game now, West Coast and Midwest. But yeah, so I mean, that used to be a huge game to watch, and you'd hear USC's fight song and the Trojan coming out, the Buckeye fight song, and these helmets that have been worn for 100 years and the same colors that have been worn since your great-grandpa was a fan of the team. You're from that region. That's what the sport used to be. I'm casually a Texans fan. I won't lie to you. My dad was a Cowboys fan. He's from Kentucky. He grew up and was just like, we don't have a team. I like Roger Staubach. But his roots to being a Kentucky fan, shout out, tough loss on Saturday against Texas. I was at that game. But shout out to Kentucky, right? He's from Kentucky and he's a Cowboys fan, and that meant basically nothing. People switch pro teams like that, like they switch jobs. You don't really switch college teams, right? If you're a Texas fan and you follow inside Texas football, your dad probably, was a Texas fan. Your brothers are Texas fans. Your whole family's Texas fans. Another half of your family is A&M fans. Another quarter of them is, Tech fans. Maybe some of them are Oklahoma fans. And that's what makes the sport the sport. Now Texas doesn't even play Texas Tech, and that was a huge rivalry. They don't play SMU or Houston or Baylor or TCU. Those were all old Southwest Conference rivals, right? So we've already lost some of that. This was bound to happen. But yeah, I personally, I don't think this is great for the sport. We're going to the NFC AFC model. Maybe they won't fully go to it, but the ACC is the next domino to fall. They're the next Pac-12. God rest their soul. The beautiful Pac-12. Say a prayer. They had their best year ever, and they collapsed right after. They had to end it on the best year. Ended on a high note. Pac-12 after dark. I'll never forget it. But I think the ACC is the next one to go. ACC, poor SMU. They finally rebounded after the Pony Express and got themselves to a major conference. And now they will probably have to leave again. We know Florida State and Clemson are doing that lawsuit trying to get out of the ACC. But it looks like we're trending towards the Big 12 and the ACC are being told directly, you don't matter as much. So if you're a major program in the ACC, why wouldn't you jump ship? I mean, everybody sees the writing on the wall. We saw this when the 12 team got announced. We thought 14 teams would happen. And when SEC was sitting there pouting on the sideline because their 9-3 teams didn't get in the playoff, this was what a lot of people surmised might happen next. But yeah, 9 conference games is what's coming next for the SEC as well, which, good or bad, depending on what you feel about it. Texas doesn't schedule those cupcakes out of conference like a lot of their SEC foes do. As much as people dogged on Texas's out of conference, or not out of conference, but just schedule in general this year. And yeah, so 9 conference games, and Oklahoma and Texas both wanted that on record. That said, and now they're saying that the conference championship game will be more of a play-in, right? Because if you have 4 automatic bids, and we saw how much that affected the champions, were almost hurt by being champions. If you were Georgia or you were Oregon, or Texas versus Penn State's path, Georgia and Oregon lost in the first round. The fact that Oregon had to rematch with the team that was the eventual national champion instead of getting Penn State's path, for example, who they beat, the whole thing is flipped on its head. So obviously there needed to be a change, but naturally the change is going to benefit the big boys, which it always has. So how much different is it really? Texas thankfully is in on that club, so nothing to worry about there. It's just going to be kind of weird that you're going to go 9-3 and you'll be in the play-in game for the SEC, because now they're saying they don't want to have their conference championship game be Georgia getting beat up on and then they're hurt in the playoff picture, right? So what they'll do is they'll have, like, let's say Texas and Georgia are 1 and 2 seeds next year, right? Well, then Texas and Georgia will they're out of the picture. Whoever had the better regular season record wins the SEC title. And then they have the 5 and 6 seed in the conference or something like that. 4 and 5 seed, or they're fighting like a play-in game, almost like a tournament, an SEC conference tournament. And then those 2 spots will go to, because they get 4 automatic qualifiers. And then an at-large could be picked from the SEC. So the whole thing is just wonked out, in my opinion. I mean, this game is going to be totally unrecognizable from 5 years prior and a couple years. 4-team, I think, was as large as it needed to get, in my opinion. And now we are just going total NFL. I mean, let me know what you guys think. Maybe you guys are excited for the future. We're going to go ahead and bring in our first caller here to talk about the CFP expansion. A regular at this point, our boy Johnny. Johnny, how do you feel about the college football playoff expansion? Johnny, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. My fault.
No worries,
What's going on, guys?
What do you think about the playoff expansion, 14 teams, 16 teams, all that stuff?
I mean, look, to be honest, y'all, we saw how competitive the first round of the college football playoff was. I feel like a further expansion is really not going to be really competitive. I mean, you saw Ohio State blowout, Texas Clemson blowout, Penn State, I forgot who they played, but it was a blow. Oh, SMU blowout, So, honestly, I get the idea of the playoff expansion in the beginning. We saw 2 years ago, an undefeated FSU team got left out, right? But I think at the end of the day, there's a pretty big difference in the top 5 teams compared to the 15th team. College basketball is a little bit different than college football, right? Like you see a lot of upsets, especially in March Madness, but I just don't see how that's really going to be productive in football. And, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think the expansion is just no good, man, to be completely honest.
I think it's selling the soul of the sport just for a few extra $1 million, like on a game here and there. Because it's like if Texas plays, I don't know, pick a program in the Big Ten, in the first round, that's not a serious competitor, right? I mean, it'll get you good ratings, but is there really a point in that? And then also the fact that these players are technically not on contract. They don't have a union. They don't have a players association, and they're going to be playing 17 games. You could have played 17 games this year, but 16 was the most anybody played. Texas played 16 because, everyone in the Final Four was not a conference champion. But these guys are playing 16 games. They're on an NFL schedule. We're seeing now spring games might be taken out because, hey, what's the point? Why beat up on your guys? Now people are player scouting at spring games. I mean, it just feels like I think the original playoff was like the first, crack in the dam, and then NIL was the next crack in the dam. And it's not saying these things are bad in a vacuum. It's just combined. And then now this it's almost totally overflowing, and the dam's going to completely break. That was college football as we knew it and loved it, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's, like I said, there's just too big of a gap. You know what I mean? Like 1 versus 8, maybe, but 1 versus 16. No way that's going to happen. So yeah, especially at their house, you know what I'm saying? So it's just, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like it's a kind of a waste of everyone's time, to be honest. If you're going to have, your top seeds playing home games against like an SMU and that's no offense to the Pony Express, but I think it was more beneficial for these programs like a UCF or, the mid majors that, like in college basketball, actually have a shot because you can jack up a bunch of 3-pointers and you're not playing such a physical game where it just matters the fact that Boise State's linemen are on average 40 pounds less than, a Penn State defensive lineman, for example. It's just, football is just not that sport. That's why Texas going and recruiting the offensive line and defensive line is why Texas almost flipped overnight back into being a top 5 contender within a couple of years with Sark. The size differential and just, man, I don't know. Do people want to see more meaningless, because people say meaningless bowl games, but do you want to see meaningless playoff games, and then bowl games are going to mean nothing? The New Year's Six has already been totally replaced with the playoff. Yeah, I mean, I just think it's going to be a strange transitional period. I just don't know how crazy it will get.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll see. I don't know. Forgive me, but I don't know exactly how the new structure is going to work. But Is it going to be like at large bids and stuff like that?
So it would be theoretically what they're presenting. They said 14 or 16 teams, but it'll be 8 guaranteed spots to your big boys, your SEC Big 10 teams, and then 2 guaranteed spots to ACC and Big 12 each. So that's 12 teams. So then you would have Notre Dame, probably. So there's 13 teams. Then a group of 5 team, one could imagine. So that'd be 14 teams. And then I guess if they do 16 teams, then they could be like, all right, we're going to take 8-4 South Carolina as an at large. We're going to take, whoever, put it in another SEC team. So I just think it's going to get more. It's probably going to get a little wacky, probably pretty fast here.
Yeah. I gotta be honest, I do not like that at all, man. I feel like you're progressing towards like an NFL system where you have like 2 large super conferences, and that's what made college football unique, right? Like it wasn't always about the postseason. If you beat your rival, you beat, like for us, if you beat A&M, you beat OU, you win your bowl game, that's like a successful year, even if you didn't win a natty. But I mean, now it's all about like that. It's almost like professional ball where like it doesn't matter some of those games during the regular season, because you're going to make the playoff anyway. And then now with the Big Ten and the SEC having 4 guaranteed spots each, I mean, what's the incentive for, the ACC to what's the incentive for any team to join, the ACC, So I feel like you're just progressing towards a 2 super conference system, and it's going to be like college or NFL light.
It already gobbled up the Pac-12, right? And now the Pac-12, they're rebounding, but it's with like Boise State and Colorado State. It's not a power conference anymore. So I feel like the ACC is definitely the next one to go. And then it will only be a matter of time before the Big 12. And then it'll just be like, all right, you just got to get in, or you're playing at an actual different league of football. I mean, I really, because there's no like actual set like leadership in the NCAA right now, because of the fact that the SEC and Big Ten can just decide on a whim to be like, we're blowing it all up. They can go Thanos mode and just give us our demands, or we're going to totally, destroy the universe, basically. Which it's a shame. It's a shame Texas is a part of this, man. I wish they were still in the old Big 12, in my opinion. But it's why not get in if you can, right? If you're Texas, but I think it's going to get weird, and being NFL light will just destroy the sport, because why would you want to watch the NFL light when you can see better players play the NFL, or just why would you watch it all? Because you just go, the thing you liked college football for is now gone.
Yeah. I mean, college football is a very unique sport. I mean, I think college sports in general are very unique, but I mean, you're talking about everything, the pageantry and all that stuff, but especially the postseason system is very different. So I think you're right, man. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if the future of the sport is bright with this expansion, to be honest, but I guess, it'll be good for ratings. It'll be good for the TV news networks. So I guess that's the most important thing in college football these days.
Yeah, it seems like it's money over everything else, which drives a lot of businesses. But it's college football felt like that last thing where you got that sort of childhood innocence and nostalgia, where it just felt like everything has stayed the same. SEC on CBS, that's gone now. It's just a lot of change really quickly, and probably this would also, I imagine, trickle down to changing college basketball as well. So we've already seen like how jacked up conferences have gotten for other sports. Like now people who play softball that has nothing to do with the realignment, or basketball even, or college baseball, have to travel from, Southern California to play a conference game in Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The whole thing is just, it's going off. It's kind of just going on the crazy train at this point. I just don't know. I don't know where the end is, or if like it'll have a reset where people will go, this isn't working. We'll see. I hope it goes back to being more regional. I've seen some people saying like, give me a super Southwest conference, give me a super Midwest conference, and like get us back to where it used to be. But yeah, we'll see, man. I mean, I guess if you're these guys, why not continue to monopolize the sport?
I mean, especially with like, you look at like the Cotton Bowl, it's not even at the Cotton Bowl anymore. It's at Jerry World, It's like, why are we calling it the Cotton Bowl if it's not being played at the Cotton Bowl? It's just, I don't know, man. Is it sports changing? It's changing.
So it's over, Johnny. It's over for us.
Yeah. But hey, y'all, thanks for having me on, James. Plug in the socials as always. Follow me under 60 Plates, making all the Texas content. I do have a Sark edit coming out soon. James has seen it. He likes it. I think it'll be good. So hopefully we'll drop that soon. Follow for a look at it.
Yeah, guys, he showed me the Sark edit early. It looks great. You guys are gonna like it. Sort of testament to his resilience and his championship drive, and how Sark bounced back and is now coaching a major program. So it's really cool one. He made the Michael Taff edits as well, and the Arch Manning edits.
Happy birthday to him, by the way. Happy birthday to the boy Mookie.
Oh yeah, we gotta say birthday shout out to Mookie. But yeah, man. Even if this stuff gets totally out of this earth and what we know and recognize as college football, the engagement will still be great.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Texas having more big games is good for us, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks for calling in, Johnny. Appreciate it.
All right, James. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, of course. All right, guys. That was Johnny, and that was us talking about the college football playoff expansion news that came out. And it's seems like there's going to be a lot of changes coming to college football, as it's now been announced. And we've already seen a lot of changes in recent years. But speaking of lots of changes, if you need to make any changes to your kitchen, call Luxe Kitchen and Bath.
This video is brought to you by Luxe Kitchen and Bath. Luxe has been offering high-end kitchen and bathroom remodels for 3 generations throughout the greater Austin area. With 5-star review after 5-star review on Google and Facebook, and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, you can put your faith in Luxe Kitchen and Bath's award-winning designers and skilled craftspeople to bring to life that dream vision of your special home. But that's not all. Luxe's all-star team provides full remodels, large additions, and even commercial build-outs as well. So call Luxe Kitchen and Bath at 833-358-LUXE today. Or visit luxekitchenbath.com to discover where quality meets luxury and begin the process of transforming your home. Get a free quote today by calling 833-358-LUXE. That's LUXE. Or by visiting luxekitchenbath.com. Link in the description.
All right, guys. Up next, we're going to talk about On3's list. A fun off-season conversation. What were the biggest missed calls of 2024? And obviously, Texas is on the list. You know, there were a few controversial ones people remember, seemed to think it was rigged in our favor. Yeah, we'll dive into it a little bit. But yeah, people overall seem to be unhappy with a lot of the officiating this year. It seems similar to the NFL replacement refs in a lot of ways. But yeah, so this is On3's top 10 worst college football calls of the season. And the first one we got to talk about at number 3, of course, on their list was Bottlegate. Who can forget Bottlegate? I wish I could show you guys the play. You all know the play. You have it in your head, and we all know what proceeded right after that play. But unfortunately, the overlords at YouTube will strike me down if I play anything from ESPN. I think they're all owned by Disney at this point. We might as well be owned by Disney. But yeah, so the play, Jahdae Barron gets an interception, lightly touches the guy. I don't even remember if they touched. That's why it would be nice if I could play the film on here. But yeah, so he barely even touches the guy. He gets a pick. It puts Texas in red zone territory, huge momentum shifter, and they throw a flag for defensive holding or pass interference. And the thing is, I think this is kind of disingenuous having this on here as one of the biggest missed calls of 2024, because it was not a missed call. It was a missed call initially, and then they did rectify it, right? Now, maybe it took a little bit of a mafioso type, sometimes you gotta do a little loan when you're a loan shark, and you gotta knock some sense into people. You gotta maybe threaten. Maybe the bottles threaten them a little bit. Extort, whatever word you want to use. We're not going to say that's what they did, but they made the right call in the end. And some people call them cowardly for it, right? But it was the right call. Now, the problem is that people have with it, it set a bad precedent, right? You know, whether right or wrong, if you put your kid in timeout or you take your kid's PSP, I might be dating myself. I know I look young, but PSPs are totally outdated. You take a kid's Xbox, right? But then it turns out, oh, actually, maybe I was kind of in the wrong. I just lost my sense. I lost my temper a little bit there. And then you give it right back to him, and he did do something wrong. But you decide, well, the way he reacted, he threw a bad fit, and I think I might have actually been in the wrong. He he kind of pouted a lot, and I don't really want to deal with him annoying me and yelling at me and stuff. So I'm just going to give him his Xbox back. That's kind of what the refs did here, which is good in our sake because the call was right in the end, and Texas, got the ball and then proceeded to score. They didn't win the game, as everyone knows, but it was an interception. That's the thing, is you can't review calls really in college football yet. I'm sure that'll end up coming at some point. But yeah, so as we know, they should have, picked up that flag immediately. It took a little nudging from the fans. They made the right call in the end, but it's still considered an egregious call by the officials to reverse that. We saw Kirby Smart. He said basically he thought they were running a coup in Austin, that the Hollywood that is Austin, Texas now was playing against the good old boys from Athens, Georgia. If you remember his post-game interview, where he thought the officials had it out for him, where, we've seen people on the other side of the coin think the officials had it out for them when they were playing Georgia, but all the power to Kirby. Yeah, the call was terrible. And then I guess you don't want to set that precedent of, you can just react poorly and then you'll get the call your way. I mean, this was an SEC moment. I think this was Texas's welcome to the SEC moment, because we remember a few years ago, the fake UT threw a bunch of balls on the field. They didn't get their way. Texas threw a bunch of balls on the field. Ref looks up the Jumbotron. He second guesses himself and goes, yeah, we got to give him that call. I don't think this is one of the missed calls. I think it's controversial. I don't think it was a missed call. It was initially a missed call. But yeah, it ended up working out for Texas. It was one of the crazier moments in history of college football. And it was definitely a rookie move by the refs. I mean, once you call that call, you got to kind of stand on business and just like eat crow the next few days and be like, we messed up. We shouldn't have thrown a pass interference flag, but you do it. You gotta stand with it. You gotta stick with it. To then it's almost more cowardly to turn around and go, hey, actually, guys, we're sorry. We really messed up on that one. Here you go. Please don't throw any more beer bottles at us or water bottles. That's the thing. UT fans, nice guys. They only throw water bottles. You hear stories back in the day of people throwing beer bottles and, people on the field getting hurt. Texas fans, they only throw plastic water bottles. How bad can that really be? My brothers and I used to throw rocks at each other. But yeah, so the problem here is obviously officiating in general. There's a reason On3 made this list. It's gotten a lot of engagements, made the rounds on social media, because the officiating this year did feel very NFL replacement refs-esque. A lot of bad calls all around. And the refs, like we said in this call, for example, if they had stuck with the pass interference, they don't have any accountability whatsoever, right? They can just screw up, and then the league office sends you a letter on Monday saying, oh, yeah, that was a wrong call. Probably would have helped you if it went the other way. Sorry about it. And then the refs are not full-time employees. They don't have to answer for anything. So it's like if players and coaches have to answer for stuff, I do think refs, like, not in a threatening way, but you should know who they are. You should be able to interview them. They should be able to explain themselves in scenarios like this, right? But you never hear from the refs. You hear from a league office. So, I mean, this was a bizarre incident, a funny incident. People thought it was in poor taste. Overall, this is such a college football moment right here. Feel free to call in if you were there, if you have any thoughts on the officiating and whatnot. But we're gonna go ahead and bring in our first caller to talk about Bottlegate, as they've dubbed it, and the worst, or On3's worst calls of 2024. Dylan, how you doing?
I'm doing good, James. How are you?
I'm good, man. What do you think about the bottle incident and that call as a whole?
I mean, I was there. I was in the student section that game. I thought the comment that you made about the water bottle was pretty funny earlier. But the reason for that was because there's a huge line to get into that game. And as soon as they let everyone in, it was like 4 or 5 hours before kick. And they just had thousands of free bottles of water everywhere. So by the time it was the third quarter, there's just hundreds of empty bottles just laying on the ground. So people were just rapid firing those in. But the call itself, I mean, that call, that play, that was one of the loudest I've heard DKR the entire season. It came right after a touchdown. Everyone was demoralized after that first half. It was 23-0. We go down, score a touchdown. Third play, the next drive, you get a pick. Jade returns it to like the 10-yard line. And then to have that stripped away, and then you look up at the scoreboard and there's basically nothing, like you said, no contact, no anything. I mean, it's frustrating. obviously the crowd was very frustrated. I did not throw a bottle. I did not agree with that decision from the student section, but yeah, I do agree that it was pretty cowardly by the referees to overturn that. But I mean, I can't blame them. Like it's that big of a game, and to make that call, and people are throwing stuff, and you look up, the whole crew looks up at the scoreboard. I'm like, was this really that bad? And they're like, no, it's a terrible call. And of course, they have more time to discuss it because everyone's picking up the bottles, and then they end up overturning it. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think it was a bad message, like you said. I think it says a bad precedent, like to other schools to do the same thing. But yeah, very crazy moment. I'd say that's the craziest thing I've ever witnessed at DKR, especially Sark running out to our side of the stadium, telling everyone to stop. It was pretty nuts.
Yeah, that whole entire exchange was bizarre. And then the fact that I thought they were stopping the game, and then they come back out and the ref announces that they picked up the flag, or there's no foul for pass interference after 12 minutes of time has elapsed. The whole thing was just bizarre. It felt like a fever dream. Texas didn't even end up winning in the end, but it did. It led to, I don't know if you saw later on in the season, other teams did try throwing bottles on the field and stuff, but didn't work out for them. But yeah, people thought that this was a BS call, or a coup was being run so Texas could win. Kirby said, alluded to that, as I mentioned earlier, that the refs had it out for him. But really, that call, that would have been on this list maybe at number 1 if they had stuck with the original call. So that's a lose-lose situation. But just a total, I mean, I think a funny story. No one got hurt that I know of. You were there. But
I think one person actually got hit in the back of the head and had to get carted out of the stadium in one of the front rows. But again, in the Cotton Bowl, whenever Gunnar Helm got the flag for the celebration in the fourth quarter, one person from the back row just threw a water bottle, and everyone started freaking out. It's like, no. But that was pretty funny.
In the Cotton Bowl against Ohio State.
Yeah, one person threw a bottle after he got flagged for excessive celebration.
You don't think you guys will run it back next year?
I hope not. I didn't like that.
It does send the wrong message about UT. UT's prestigious institution and supposed to be above that, more class. That's more of a Texas Tech kind of thing. They're already throwing tortillas on the field.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Hey, well, thanks for calling in, Dylan. Appreciate you sharing a little tidbits about the bottle gate.
Yeah, for sure, man.
All right, we got one more guy talk about worst calls. Jackson.
How you doing, James?
Hey, Jackson, you're on the horn. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of stuff that Dylan said, and I do agree it sends a bad message. I think a couple weeks later, it was either Tennessee or Ohio State tried to repeat it. So obviously you can't set the precedent of, just start throwing stuff on the field and we'll reverse the call. But, in the moment with the adrenaline of the game, as a fan, it was kind of a cool moment to just in a sense, the student section's able to impact the game. I don't think that they changed it because of the bottles were thrown, but it gave them time to review the call.
Yeah, I mean, we do see refs pick up flags after looking up at the Jumbotron. Yeah. So we know that they see what, we see as fans. It gave them, an extra nudge to think about it a little harder.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And then I guess I think the other one I saw on that list was the no targeting call.
Yep, about to bring that one up. I was going to see if you want to talk about it with me.
On Michael Taft against Arizona State. That one's kind of tricky because, I think I listened to Greg McElroy break it down. I think technically by rule it is targeting, just because of the way that the ball catcher was facing. But if you watch it back, there's not really much Michael Taft can do in that situation, because he doesn't have enough time to get low. He kind of just has to hit him there. And then in the moment, in the game, is that really everybody knows that situational calls are a real thing in sports. You're not gonna call a double dribble, Game 7 of the NBA Finals with 20 seconds left. So I think that did play into it a little bit. So yeah, honestly, this one's pretty 50-50 for me. Obviously, Arizona State fans. If I was an Arizona State fan, I'd be losing my mind. But in that situation, there's not really much Michael Taft can do. And I think watching that, they noticed that, and that's why they it was just a review for targeting. So I don't think they overturned anything, but they decided not to call it.
Yeah, I mean, this was their number one call on the list, which is kind of nuts. Yeah. But the targeting no call, obviously. I mean, technically, I've seen the same kind of discussions. Technically, by the letter of the law, it is targeting because, you know, I guess he hit him helmet first. But the thing is with Taft is like he broke it down and said like he tackled exactly how he's been taught his entire life. His face was up. He looked at the guy he was going to tackle. Then he wrapped, brought him down. But I mean, I don't really think this was the egregious call that they made it out to be. And to your point, it is very situational. Like you don't want Arizona State to then go on and win that game because you gave them a 15-yard penalty. Unless it's something totally erroneous where it's just like that was a blatant targeting, like he lowered his head, you know, launched at the receiver. He was defenseless. Like Taft was making a form tackle and his head happened to hit him in the head. Yeah. It happened to be helmet-to-helmet contact. But, yeah, you don't want a game to be decided by a targeting penalty. This one, another bizarre one, and, of course, you know, there was all the allegations that it was rigged for Texas.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, it's that point exactly because if I remember correctly, if this does get called targeting, Texas has about like a 2% chance to win this game based on the clock, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was like 1 and 130 probably left in the game. Yeah. They're on their own 45, I think. Yeah, that's almost at the 50. That would have put them across the 50. They at the very least would have ran the clock out. But it didn't. Texas got the ball back for another Bird Auburn missed field goal. So it didn't matter. And Arizona State's kicker also sucked that game. If you remember, they had terrible special teams issues as well.
Yeah. Overall this season, though, I think the refs in general have had a terrible performance. Like some overalls, like I don't think I've ever seen a season with this many, you know, viral the Utah BYU game. You saw the Utah AD going in the press conference talking about how it's crazy, it's egregious, and that they're going to investigate. The game should be. I've never seen an AD pop into the press conference and go off on the refs like that. That was pretty crazy. The funny thing about that game, I can't remember the ref's name, but he was actually fired from the Big 12 for being such a terrible ref, and then was hired by the Pac-12. But then came back because of conference realignment.
That's hilarious. Another reason conference realignment has been bad for the sport. Yeah, I remember seeing that the Utah AD going there because they felt that game. I mean, that game. Remind me what the call was that.
It was a series. It was a series of calls because I think they had fourth to go on like their own 5-yard line, something like that, and they start the play and the BYU quarterback just gets demolished or is about to get demolished, but then they blow it dead for I can't remember what. So they kind of got two chances. Like they got to see Utah's defensive look, change the play, they get the first down, and then later in the drive, there's a controversial. Did the ball hit the ground on the catch? And then there's 3 calls on the game-winning drive that.
Yeah, I remember there was the last one that gave them like another chance, and then they got the game-winning field goal, if I remember right.
Yeah, like to get the first down instead of the field goal. Yeah.
Yeah, it did feel very weird this year. I don't know why the officiating was at such a low level where it felt like constantly in games there was just strange calls going. It seemed like either way, people will say it's rigged for certain teams like Texas, but it felt like every team kind of got screwed on weird calls at various points in the season. And I mean, it's something where you'd like to see like refs become like an official employee as this moves towards at this point just being a professional sport. You need these guys to be like full-time employees and have, you know, just more accountability and more standards for officiating. So it's not, you know, crap like the Bottlegate happening again or being replicated. And,
Right.
you never know the ref's name. They never have to answer for anything. It's always the league office, and then the ref just moves on to the next game.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of it, I think you can tie it into just being effective of all the changes coming to college football. And the biggest issue with it all is no one knows kind of the next step. There's no precedent for this. And I just don't think you can do this with a sport like college football that is rooted in tradition. You can't change things every year. If you don't have stability, you can never really know if something works out. Like a 1 year sample size, 2 year sample size, you never know. And to your point earlier in the show, I agree with you. I think the max should have been 6, give 2 teams a bye, and that should be it. Like the sport that, like you said, we grew up watching is kind of dead now, which is too bad.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't think it's going to revert. It's just probably going to get more bizarre and just kind of out of touch.
I think these next. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, just this year, I don't know about, but after Texas lost in the Cotton Bowl, especially, I just had kind of totally forgotten that the national title was being played, and it just felt kind of weird. I don't know if burnout is right because we all love college football, but it just feels weird when you're going into January, late January now for college football, when it used to finish on January 1st.
Yeah, and I think the next 5-6 years, it's going to be even more frustrating with all the different changes that happen. I will say though, with this new format that they're proposing, like you talked about, I think it is a better alternative to what happened this year. And because of that, like you said, the SEC is almost 100% going to move to 9 league games, and that means that they're going to matter more, those games, and then also, from what I've heard, it's gonna lead to a whole new TV deal with the Big Ten and the SEC playing each other. Like you said, Alabama, Michigan, Texas, Ohio State, that those matchups are going to happen almost every year, which I think is good for the sport. And then obviously there's like the looming 2031 when all the TV deals end and the super conferences might happen. So, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, all we can worry about is 2025. But
Right.
2026, we're probably getting at least a 14-team playoff. And then God only knows what will happen next. But with still got football, great games to watch.
That's right. Yeah. We'll always have the game day traditions. Hopefully they'll never take that away.
Yeah, as long as you still got a fight song and Texas still plays OU and A&M, it'll still feel all right to me.
I agree. Yeah.
You want to shout anything out, Jackson? Or
yeah. Me and my roommate Dylan, we have a podcast called The Eye Test. Would love if people could check that out. On Instagram, Twitter, and then everywhere you watch podcasts, it's there.
All right, The Eye Test. Thanks for calling in again, Jackson. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, guys. And on that note, we got a little bit of a shorter show for you tonight. We're going to get to SEC program power rankings. I'll save that for Thursday because I want to really get into the meat of that. And we started the show late tonight, but we'll have some fun on Thursday talking about Texas, Georgia, and a lot of other SEC programs. A little bit of a slow show for you tonight, coming off of Valentine's Day weekend. Had some fun with my girlfriend this weekend. We went out on the lake in Austin, rented these retro boats. Not a sponsor, but it should be. They have these like 1960s boats, and we rented them. I felt like James Bond. I put on an old sweater, went down Lake Austin, which is, for those who aren't from here, it's just a river. Cruised down Lake Austin, was playing some oldies, trying to feel like Frank Sinatra, get that sort of old English vibe. That's what I was going for. Had a long weekend, then went to the Texas-Kentucky basketball game, as I mentioned earlier. So starting slow coming off the weekend. But yeah, we'll get into some more fun stuff for you guys on Thursday night as we talk about SEC power rankings for the future. And I sort of predict the next 3 to 5 years of the SEC and Texas's future. But guys, make sure you subscribe to Inside Texas. Hit the subscribe button down there for me. Share the show with people. I'm going to make sure to start putting out the show link more so you guys can join and call in. Share it with friends. I'd love to hear you guys call in. We're going to have some fun this offseason, just try and keep things fresh and, have fun conversations, talk crap to each other, and hear y'all's takes, questions, and try and converse with you guys as much as possible. But I appreciate you guys joining me for a slower show tonight. And didn't quite go an hour and a half. I went an hour and a half last Thursday. I didn't even know I could talk for that long, but it was a fun one. Had a lot more callers that time. A little slower tonight, but appreciate you guys. And we will get to these SEC power rankings. Got to keep them private. You could probably guess where I have Texas. Maybe. Might be a little biased. But yeah, like, subscribe. Follow me at Jamerson Hayden. Please share this show. Check if you're subscribed right now for me, because we're going to keep posting great stuff for you guys. And yeah, appreciate you all. Follow Inside Texas on Instagram. Follow us wherever you have a social media account. We're on there. Please like, subscribe, share. And I'm out if I can find the 3, 2, 1. God bless. Oh, did I really not end the stream? There we go, guys. I'm still new to producing. Now, goodbye.